All right, everyone, it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. People are still filtering in, but we want to make sure that we use your time as well as we can. My name, is Abby Jarvis, and I work over at QGive. For those of you who are not already QGive clients, I know some of you are, we are a fundraising platform that is built to help nonprofits raise more money, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. We put a lot of emphasis on tools that are easy for you and your donors to use. If you are interested in working with us, or even if you just want to learn a little more about us, you can visit us at qgive.com. And there are a couple of little housekeeping items I would like to tell you about. We are recording this webinar. So probably tomorrow or Monday, you'll get an email from me that will contain a recording of this webinar and links to any of the resources that Lindsey mentions in her presentation. If you have questions throughout the webinar, we do have time slated at the end of the webinar. So just type them into the chat box or ask a question. I'll keep an eye on that and make sure that we get to you and answer the questions that you have. If you are active on Twitter, you will see me live tweeting some of the highlights of today's webinar on the hashtag QWebinar. You can also learn more about what QGive does and what Lindsey and all of her incredible people are doing over at Oneicity by following us. I've got our handles here. Today, Lindsey Lind is going to tell us some amazing things about how we can do better fundraising using some tools that big e-commerce people like Amazon and eBay are already using. Lindsey just gave me a rundown of what she's going to talk about, and it absolutely blew my mind. So I am really excited to turn things over to her. Lindsey, are you there? Everyone, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Just a second. Lindsey, are you there? Lindsey?
Yeah.
Okay, you're there. Okay, good. I've switched the presentation over to you.
Awesome.
So we're all ready to get started.
Excellent. All right. So today we are talking through tracking donors online. And this is a topic that I have so much passion for, and I have to give a shout out to Abby and the rest of the team at QGive, because they have just been phenomenal in helping to move forward with this, and in a industry working in the nonprofit world where a lot of times we lag behind the for-profit guys. The technology that's available, the databases, the ERP systems, we're often behind in terms of the tools at our disposal. But one of the great things in working with QGive is the ability to continue to adapt and continue to evolve what we're able to track, and thus how we're able to actually make marketing decisions, fundraising decisions, of where to invest dollars, how we can bring in more income, more new donors for the nonprofits that we work for. So I always start, I speak a fair amount on digital marketing with nonprofits, and I always start just by giving an idea of kind of where we're at, because we all arrive with a different set of skill sets, different understanding of digital marketing. And so kind of on the far end of the spectrum, you've got I know this is important. I know we need to be doing some more with tracking online, but I have no idea where to start. A lot of you might be in the middle, that e-commerce isn't a foreign word, but it is something that that you're just wanting to find out what is the next. How can we actually use this? Perhaps you're with QGive and you're wondering, how can we use this with QGive as well? And then there's always a few of the hotshots on the call that been there, done that. Show me the goods, show me some of the code and how we can actually do this. So as we talk through this, my goal is to kind of hit about here. That there may be a few of the concepts that are new to you, new ideas, but I really want to just give an overview. And my goal is for the talking portion here to take about a half hour and then leave about 15 minutes for Q&A, because I find the variety with nonprofits in terms of what you're looking to track, how you want to set up these funnels really varies. And so I want to make sure that we have enough time at the end of this webinar to be able to have you ask questions. So when we start looking at online tracking, one of the things that's important to understand, and if you're an executive director or a CEO, a lot of what we do with marketing and fundraising comes back to direct response. It comes back to, how can I tie an ROI to this? And so direct response is a lot of what we live and die by with the nonprofit world. We're looking to have a specific call to action. We're measuring that call to action, and then thus we're able to attribute an ROI. So a classic direct response model would be with a direct mail appeal, for example. So you've got a specific audience that you're sending a mail package out to, maybe you're sending a newsletter out to. They receive that piece, they take that action, they mail back in the envelope, and then you're able to collect funds for your nonprofit. Very easy then to go from the responses to that specific audience and say, okay, this particular direct mail appeal to this particular audience cost us this, we made this amount of income, and here's our net and our ROI. The problem is when we look to apply a direct response strategy to digital, it gets a little more muddy, and I'll show you kind of what I mean by that. When we look at online, one of the things that we know, and we've done a lot of studies here at Oneicity on this, is that donors don't stay in their lane. It's not as simple as driving someone to a landing page, they click on that, they give a gift, and then thus you know that they were motivated by the call to action on that landing page. Instead, what happens is you have all these different specific audiences, and I just put 5 on here just for us to begin to kind of think through this. But you may have people that are coming from emails and they're going to your website to give a gift. They may be coming from Facebook or Facebook ads that you're doing. They may be coming from other paid ads that you're doing with Google or with an individual vendor. They may be coming from the Google grant, which is another great topic in terms of free traffic that you can be driving to your site. They're also coming from online activities. They're coming from an event that they just attended, or maybe a mail piece that they received in the mail. And so all of these different ways that someone is arriving on your site, then they go to your site, and from there there's multiple calls to action that they may take. So they may go to your website and then from there click on a donation form. They may go to that specific campaign that you set up in terms of a landing page, and then still end up clicking through and just giving a gift off your main donation form instead of the campaign one. So you can see here, just in the illustration, going from an audience to I've made a gift is not a linear succession like it is in direct mail. I mean, the example I gave here, there's over 25 different combinations of how people can be motivated to go to a donation form and then ultimately give a gift. And so the goal with the e-commerce tracking and what we're going to talk about today is how can we begin to track some of this? Because as online giving grows and it becomes a bigger and bigger portion of your revenue, it's not enough anymore just to say, oh, and online giving is up 20%, but we don't really know why, and we don't really know what the most effective channels, the most effective strategies are for driving those dollars. And so we need to kind of put some of these metrics in place, put some of this tracking in place to be able to answer those questions. And that is what e-commerce tracking is all about. It is about how do we apply that direct response thinking, tying that ROI, tying that call to action back to your marketing efforts and your fundraising efforts. How do we apply that to digital? So one of the other challenges that comes with online is that online is both a channel and a motivation. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of different marketing that you do, let's say you call somebody and you ask for a donation, or you have an event, they're motivated to give because of that phone call or because of that event. With online, it can be a motivation. They go to your homepage and they see a great banner talking about the work that you do as a nonprofit, and they're motivated by that to give a gift. Or they receive an email and the call to action in the email motivates them to give a gift. But online can also just be a channel. And so they can be motivated through an event, through a volunteer experience that they had last weekend that drove them to give. And so with the online channel, not only do we have the challenge of just tracking where the traffic came from to help better understand what motivated the gift, but we have to understand that online is a channel as well. And the more integrated your marketing efforts are, the more that you have a newsletter that also drives to that website URL that integrates with an email and maybe a social media post. All of those combine, and the more integrated it is, the harder it is to track back to that original motivation. So we're going to go through today 3 strategies for tracking your donors online. And these are 3 practical things that hopefully you can take back to your team, talk to your leadership about as a way to begin stepping into this e-commerce tracking. And I mentioned earlier on this call that the for-profit world is already dialed in on this, and I have to say is so much easier to track a lot of this because retailers have been demanding this level of tracking, have been demanding to be able to track from a Facebook post all the way to the online donation 10 years ago. And so a lot of the ERP systems, a lot of the Shopify and some other solutions that are out there have already been set up to allow this e-commerce tracking. In the nonprofit world, organizations are just starting to ask these questions and starting to realize as online becomes a bigger channel for them that this is an important thing to track. And so the great benefit in working with QGIve is we've got the ability to track that. We've got the ability to put these tools in place, these 3 strategies in place to get some of these answers. So number 1, it is just about starting. It can seem overwhelming, and we could go down a lot of rabbit holes with different things that you can track, different ways that you can set up e-commerce tracking, all the different online strategies that maybe you should be testing and trying. But at the end of the day, it's just beginning. Can we track from an original source, from an email, to the website, to the gift that resulted from that click-through? That is the basics of what we're looking at. And so when I talk about e-commerce tracking, here's what I'm talking about. Now I'll use QGIve as the example in this, but for those of you that might not happen to be on QGIve, there are other options that may exist through those vendors as well. So what we're trying to do with e-commerce tracking is we're trying to track three things. We're trying to track a unique session. So we're trying to say the person that came in through that Facebook ad or through that email is the same person, the same session in Google Analytics as the person who ultimately completes the transaction on a QGive donation form. So we've got to be able to sync those sessions between your website and QGive's URL to carry that all the way through. The second thing we need to track is the transaction ID. Every transaction in QGive has a unique identifier. There's a unique ID code tied to each of those. And so we've got to be able to pass that from QGive back into Google Analytics for us to be able to track these individual transactions, these individual donations into Google Analytics. And then the third thing that we need to be able to track is the donation amount, the transaction amount. So we need to know, was it a $100 gift, was it a $50 gift, and have that information from QGive go back into your Google Analytics account. And so we do that using a tool that's called Google Tag Manager. And it's a way to just kind of set up that tracking properly so that you're able to see those sessions, see those transactions from point A to point B. I put a link here on the bottom of the page here that goes directly to all the dev instructions of how to do that. If you've got someone on your team that's web savvy and is a developer and can implement this, certainly something that you've got the option to do in-house. But I would say also it's something that's worth the investment initially to get set up. Google Analytics is not the only tool that you can use to do this. Adobe has an analytics product. There's another one called Funnel.io. But the great thing about Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager is unless you're a $100 million nonprofit, Google Analytics is going to work just fine for what you're looking for. And it's free. There's no cost to using Tag Manager. There's no cost to using Google Analytics. And so you're able to reap the benefit of these amazing analytics tools once you get that initial setup complete. So what does that actually look like? We're talking about getting this set up. Most of you are probably familiar with Google Analytics and how that looks on the back end of your site. This is an example from a client that has the e-commerce set up. And so you can see here, this is a report just like you would pull out of your Google Analytics. We're looking at what is the source of the traffic. So you can see here we've got Google, we've got direct, people just typing in the direct URL. We've got the email system that we're using. We've got Google ads that are running, cost per click ads, and then some Bing and Yahoo traffic as well. So just as you can see the sessions and the users and the bounce rate, all those core metrics that you're used to seeing in Google Analytics, once you have e-commerce tracking set up, you get this other column over here, which is a wealth of information for you then to take action on. So you can see the revenue, so we can see where the dollars are coming in. So email, for example, email for this client brought in $26,000 out of 250 transactions that came in. So from there we can figure out the average gift by channel. And then you can also just see the e-commerce conversion rate. And this is kind of where the funnel piece comes in, because we're able to see not all channels are created equal. Not all marketing or fundraising programs are created equal. And so it lets us then be able to say, wow, this one has a much better conversion rate. Let's invest dollars in that. Or, you know, our organic traffic has one of the lowest conversion rates. Can we do some SEO things to help improve that? And so it lets you then take actions not just off of traffic or bounce rate, but actually off of what is motivating people to give, what is helping people to convert to become a donor of your organization. This e-commerce tracking applies across the board. So every report that you can see in Google Analytics, whether it is browsers or mobile versus desktop or pages that people look at or geographic areas, all the reports within Google Analytics then have this overlay to them of the conversion tracking. So here's one on age, and this breaks down the traffic by age groups, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, and you can see the percentage of traffic that it is. And then over here you see the transactions and the revenue and then that conversion rate that we're talking about applied to those different age groups. And so here's a great example of something that is helpful to take action on. I mean, you may look at this and say, wow, 25 to 34, I mean, we're hitting those millennials. We're 21% of the traffic is coming from millennials. This is great. However, when we look at the number of transactions, yes, they're coming, happy to have those 10 gifts, but in terms of the revenue and the average gifts, those millennials, the call to action and maybe the funnels that you need to take with that specific group may not be to get them to try to give a gift. It may be to try to get their email address, or maybe try to have a special volunteer activity that's just for that group of people. And so it lets you make much more informed decisions about what you're doing in terms of your digital marketing. So within the setup, one of the great things about doing this process is you only have to do it once. The setup takes time. It takes a little bit of dollars just to kind of get up and running on it. And there's a little bit of testing that has to go into it, because we want to make sure that we're tracking everything accurately. Because once we get this basic tracking set up, it opens a floodgate of opportunities in terms of what we're able to track and see. And so QGive, again, allows this e-commerce code to be placed on the back end of their donation forms. The setup has to work with your domain and your website CMS platform that your website is hosted on. And once you create that, you're able then to see these sorts of reports show up in your Google Analytics. So number two, once we get the basic tracking set up, we've got the ability to apply that tracking to ads. So why is this important? Facebook and Google own 85% of all the online ad inventory, and are growing at a substantial rate. You only have to look at the stock market and Facebook and Alphabet's stock growth to see their revenue that they're getting is off of ads. And the reason that they're growing so quickly and the reason why they're getting such big ad revenue is because it works, and because the tools that exist, the targeting that exists with online advertising has a huge potential for nonprofits that most are just beginning to scratch the surface with. Within those two platforms, we're able to target local media, we're able to target national media, various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, retail sites, Amazon.com. You can target ads in Facebook with Amazon.com, and there's an awesome audience network connection that exists there. And then retargeting. Once we have this e-commerce tracking set up, we're able to retarget people who maybe visited your site, but they didn't give a gift. And so we're able then both to increase the conversion rate and get people to come back to your site to give a gift, but we're also able to honor the fact that if somebody recently made a donation, we're not going to target them with the ads. And so it allows us to be smart about how we're marketing and to have integrity with our fundraising. So ad tracking works differently than Google Analytics, and it's a wonderful thing. Google Analytics works basically looking at these three parts. So I click on a specific ad. I might click on a Facebook ad. I visit the website, and then I make a donation. And so Google Analytics is then able to say, well, hey, the source originally came from a Facebook ad. will attribute that donation to the Facebook ad. The problem with that is, as we talked about at the beginning of the webinar, donors don't always stay in their lanes, and they don't always follow a linear path that they click on an ad and immediately give a gift. They may click on the ad, look elsewhere on your site, they may go back to your site at a later time to give a gift, or they may have seen the ad and clicked on it and then later receive an email and choose to give a gift off of that. And so one of the big questions that the retailers started asking about 3 or 4 years ago was, we don't just want to know I clicked on an ad and I made a transaction. We want to know, did that ad influence the purchase? Did that ad influence the donation? And so with Facebook's conversion pixel and with Google's conversion tracking, we're able to see one step deeper. We're able to see, I saw the ad, so that ad came through on my newsfeed. I then visited the website within 30 days and I gave a gift. And so we're able to see not just the effect of a click-through, but the effect actually on, did that ad help to influence someone's decision to make a gift? And when we're able to track that down to the specific ad that we have set up, so maybe you have multiple ads with different images on it, we're actually able to see what is connecting with donors, what imagery, what messaging, and then make adjustments to our marketing and fundraising based on that. This is a huge benefit for acquisition. Digital acquisition strategies are where everything is headed, and the more that you can do to acquire new email addresses, to get those new donors to give a first gift, the more we sustain the health of the nonprofit. And so digital acquisition is all about the online ads. This e-commerce tracking lets you answer the question, what is working? It lets us not just say, this ad had a nice click-through rate, or wow, look at the traffic that we drove because of these ads, but we can actually say, these ads help to motivate donations. So number 3, not all valuable conversion data is numerical. It's easy to, especially once you have e-commerce tracking set up, to just look at this wealth of data and make marketing decisions off of just those conversion rates and say, oh, well, this one got a 3% conversion rate and this one got a 1%. Surely this is better. But what I would suggest and what I would offer up is to pair that with data that doesn't just look at the numerics, doesn't look at just the conversion rates. And that is done through looking at heat map software. With heat map software that records sessions, it actually records the individual traffic that's coming to your site and how they interact with your site. We're able to see how a user interacts with your site. I mean, this gets into some of the UX design pieces, but it also then lets us apply that e-commerce tracking to a visual representation. So this screenshot is just from one of our clients, and you can see the brighter the color, the more that it had cursor movement around it. And we're able to use that in addition to the data that we have to apply and make decisions off of. So there's a website, these guys are great, it's actually still in beta, but it's called Lucky Orange. And they do this heat map software. I think it's like $10 a month. But what it will let you do is you can record sessions, and you can actually watch individual users, and then you can set up these funnels. And so you can say, all right, I only want to look at traffic that actually gave an online gift, or I only want to look at traffic that went to my volunteer page and signed up to volunteer. And so you're able to look at these different audiences and actually watch how they're interacting with your site to take that action. So that piece combined with the e-commerce tracking is really, really powerful, and I just encourage you to take a look at it. So where we're headed with this, as I mentioned before, the retail world really has this dialed in. And the nonprofit world, like in most things, is playing catch up. But this is something that's worth you starting on and investing on now. We're obviously in fourth quarter. I know if you're anything like me, you have more work than you know what to do with right now. But as you go into 2018, as December starts to slow down a little bit, and you go into January, look at making an investment to get this e-commerce tracking set up, because and these are just my predictions of what I see in the industry, what I see with the nonprofit clients that we serve. But digital acquisition, acquiring donors through these online channels, through ads, this is going to surpass direct mail acquisition. This is going to surpass holding an event and getting new names that way. And very, very quickly, we have several clients that we are neck and neck with their other acquisition strategies in terms of how many new donors we can get online. And the great thing about digital acquisition online is it doesn't just have to be a fourth quarter thing. We're able to do these digital acquisition campaigns throughout the year so that you don't have so much weighted on one quarter of the year to bring in all of these new donors. Online giving is going to continue to grow. Right now, for most nonprofits, it's 10 to 12% of their overall income. I think we'll get to a quarter in the next 5 years in terms of where nonprofits' revenue is coming from. And then, most importantly, I think as other channels struggle, as the mail gets more expensive, as telemarketing maybe isn't working as well, events are expensive, online giving is going to continue to grow year over year for the next decade. And so the investments you make now in dialing in some of this e-commerce tracking really will fuel and help you grow and be in a position in 2027 to be able to reap all the benefits from the awesome technology and tools that are available to us as fundraisers. So I guess I leave you with one final thing. Don't be left behind in this. It can seem overwhelming, the coding, the technical piece. You might need a little bit of help with just to get dialed in. But once you have that setup done, the amount of data that you'll have available to make decisions for marketing and fundraising will just blow you away. And so I just want to encourage you during this fall fourth quarter season. I know everyone is working so hard, but add this to your list. Have this be a priority as you go into 2018, and I think you will be as excited as I am to see what it can do for your organization. So with that, I came pretty close to the half-hour mark. So as I said, I wanted to leave the end of it for Q&A. If you don't have any specific questions, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or if you're needing any help with e-commerce tracking. If you don't have any questions, have a great rest of your day. If you do, feel free to jump on and ask, and Abby and I'll do our best to get them answered.
Awesome. I did want to ask a couple of questions that just came to my mind. I know one thing we talked about a lot was QGive's webinar or QGive's tools, but I also know that while there are QGive clients on the line, there are a lot of people who are here who are not QGive clients. What can they do with the tools they have to do some of this e-commerce tracking if they're not using our platform?
That's a great question, Abby. I think it really begins with asking questions. A lot of people that work with databases and work with the online giving forms, when you say, oh, do you do e-commerce tracking, they may not know exactly what you mean. And so being able to kind of show them the examples from this webinar, show them, here's what I'm trying to be able to track. And you may be the first client they have that's asking for this. But it is something that with a lot of donation forms is possible. It just takes some back and forth work to make it happen. And for the ones that don't, or just say, nope, that's never going to be an option, that's something to consider too, because if they're not going to evolve and update their technology to allow for this, you got to factor that into your decisions in terms of databases and online giving forms as well.
Okay, so if you go to your fundraising platform and you say you want to do e-commerce tracking, and they are ready and willing to help you do that, but you work for a small shop and you haven't really done any of this before, what is the first step that they can take, really basic, to get started in a way that's meaningful to them without having to spend a ton of time on it?
Absolutely. Having a phone call and explaining what the needs you have are is where it begins. Most of the databases that I know of that do e-commerce tracking or will help clients do that, I know a few of the Blackbaud ones, eTapestry and CauseView that's on Salesforce. I mean, a lot of them can set up the special programming for you, and my experience is it usually runs between, I don't know, $1,000 and $4,500 in terms of a cost that your database may charge to kind of set that up for you. But
wow.
Again, the good thing is it's a one-time setup that then you reap the benefit of for years to come. And so a lot of the systems like a Blackbaud, they're closed systems, and so whereas with QGIve, we have access to the back end and we can put in the code needed, and you can hire lots of different people to help you with that. With a closed system like a Blackbaud, you've got to pay them to do it. And so there is a cost investment to this, but the nice thing is it's not an ongoing fee. It's just a one-time investment to dial this in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, imagine you're one of these many people who are listening to you, and they have a kind of basic understanding, but they want to learn more about how to do this. Where can we point them so they can learn more about e-commerce tracking and how it works?
I think the tutorials are a good place to start. There's a link back a few slides that will take you to the Google page that actually talks about that. And Google has a couple of just online videos that talk about what is e-commerce tracking, how is that set up, and maybe goes a little bit deeper than what we were able to cover in 30 minutes. So I would start there. And there's also just a lot of great blog posts that have been written on e-commerce tracking. So even just Googling setting up e-commerce tracking or the value of e-commerce tracking, you can read more about it so that you feel comfortable kind of having those conversations with your database or with your online giving platform.
Very cool. And then one more question that is my question. Out of curiosity, do e-commerce tracking pieces get carried over in any way into a CRM if someone is using one of those?
That's a great question. Yes, it's possible. There are not many databases out there yet that can do that. Okay. That is where, when we talk about the retail world and even looking at the retailer of all retailers, Amazon.com, they have an ERP system that allows that. I mean, that really compiles all of that data back into a database. I think the nonprofit world will get there, but we're still a ways away from it.
Definitely, I can totally get that. Well, those were the questions that we had. Thank you so much again, Lindsey. I know you're so busy and you do so much work for the nonprofits you work with, and it's absolutely fantastic that you were able to share all of this knowledge with us in such a short period of time. So thank you.
Happy to do it.
Oh, good. For everyone else, if you want to learn about what Lindsey is doing, and she was too nice to talk about it, but if you go to Oneicity, it's Oneicity, and you go to their blog, there's a lot of really great information on the blog that you can apply to your own also. So check them out. And then again, QGIve clients, I know there are several of you watching. If you have questions about how to do this, let us know. We've done it before. We can help you get it set up, and We don't charge an arm and a leg for it, which is awesome. If you are not a QGIve client and you have questions, you can email me, you can tweet at me, you can contact us on the website. I can at least get you pointed in the right direction, either with educational materials or links that tie in with what Lindsey was talking about, or I can put you in touch with someone at QGIve if you're interested in fundraising with us. Keep an eye on your email address or your email inboxes. We're going to send you a recording really soon. And keep an eye out also for invitations to additional webinars. We talk with industry experts from all kinds of really cool companies and consulting firms who can help nonprofits raise more money pretty easily. So thank you everyone for sharing your Thursday with us. We hope you have an awesome day.